Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college hoops. We are 7 weeks away before we have a bracket on the NCAA tournament. We're not even in February yet, but we are already counting. The countdown to tip off for the NCAA tournament is rapidly approaching. So appreciate what we have in front of us. We are almost in February right now, the last week of January coming up with all these games. And the Mountain West is still squirrely as per usual. We got a couple results to talk about. San Jose State versus Wyoming. My thoughts on that game as I was live in San Jose courtside for that one after the Spartans win 67 to 58 against the Wyoming Cowboys. SJSU with their third conference victory. We'll talk about that one and just overall my thoughts on it. We'll get into San Diego State and Nevada, and should we be selling the Nevada Wolfpack stock? And I'll tell you why. I'm almost ready to. San Diego State gets themselves a massive road win in Reno, and New Mexico and UNLV. Without a doubt, the biggest game on the Saturday slate for the Mountain West, of course. And the game that came right down to the wire, the game delivered, and a UNLV team just came up just short versus the New Mexico Lobos. New Mexico 9-1 now in league play. They stand in first place. A massive game this weekend between the New Mexico Lobos and the Utah State Aggies this Saturday. That should be circled on everybody's calendars, as that is going to be a massive game for the standings and just the regular season title as a whole. But before we get into all of that good stuff and just talk the Mountain West big picture, I want to talk about the game I was at on Saturday between San Jose State and Wyoming. The Spartans won this game 67 to 58. An ugly game early, 23 to 19. SJSU led at halftime. This was a game we talked about it leading up to the week, that this was a game where San Jose State had to dictate the pace, and it had to be worrisome. At least for me, I was a little worried. The fact that San Jose State couldn't really get anything going, couldn't play, their brand of basketball, that being a little bit more up tempo compared to Wyoming. And the fact that it was just one of those ugly first half scores that was just total Wyoming Cowboy, type of half. That was didn't I imagine Spartan fans didn't like it. I will say that. 23 to 19. I mean, both teams couldn't throw a ball into the ocean. There was like three turnovers for Wyoming in the first minute of the game. San Jose State really didn't have any flow with the starting five early. Latrell Davis was really the guy off the bench for SJSU that really just came off the bench and took off and running, as he's done pretty much all year long. And I want to talk about two guys in particular for this matchup because I thought for San Jose State, they were the reasons why they won. Latrell Davis has won them a lot of games this year. I mean, he had the game winner versus New Mexico, the ridiculous, awkward, off balance layup on what after SJSU got two offensive rebounds late versus the Lobos. That right now still is the only Lobos conference loss, but he's had big plays like that. He's had just some sparks off the bench, like how he did on Saturday versus Wyoming, and the fact that he had a career high in this game, 22 points, 8 for 11 shooting, 3 for 5 from 3, I thought was just remarkable because it was, I would say, a casual 22 points from Latrell Davis. At least just from my, courtside view of the game that I had. Maybe from others, it was like, okay, this guy's really going off, and that might just be the lack of scoring. But when he scores and he's off and running, the game just comes to him, and it's just so casual. He's gonna make other players around him better. And the fact that he's only a sophomore is just kind of ridiculous. And Tim Miles said, not after the game, but he said in an interview after the game on the TV network, like, yeah, people probably think I'm crazy that this guy comes off the bench, but he's coming off the bench for a reason because his role on this team is to be the energy guy, the spark plug off the bench. Because when the starting five can't get it going in a game like that, when Josh or Will didn't have the greatest game, but still had a double double for the first time in his career. Shooting percentage wise, wasn't good for Will. Rob Viola, was bullying with the guys down low in the paint, and that's already a tough job. So Josh Aduje couldn't really get it going either. He was searching for others. He also had the two early fouls, so he can never really get into a rhythm. So this was basically like Latrell Davis sprinkled in with some Day Hall. And that's the beauty of Latrell Davis coming off the bench. And that's why his role is so important for this team. And that's why he comes off the bench. Is because when the starting five can't get a rhythm, Tim Miles has that luxury to say, "Hey, Latrell, you're up." And then the whole game changes. So that's been Latrell Davis's role this year. It was a lot of it last year, even though they probably could have used him as a starter for the lack of, scoring that they had with the starting five. But man, his energy is just contagious. The energy that he plays and the fact that a sophomore comes out there and impacts the game like that, and you got seniors and fifth year seniors following his lead, that's incredible. And that just shows you how good of a player he is and just how much respect that he has from the upperclassmen and not only the coaching staff as well. So Latrell Davis, 22 points off the bench. He was terrific. But San Jose State played their best defensive game of the year. I mean, they held Wyoming to 19 first half points, 33% shooting for the game. Obi Agbim, the star of the show for Wyoming, well, he had 7 points, 3 for 12 shooting, only made one three, 1 for 6 from beyond the arc. Obi Agbim hasn't had a 10 point, he's had a 10-point game every single game this year. He had 7 in this one. He was held to single digits for the first time all year. And all of that credit goes to Donovan Yap. Donovan Yap was all over up in his grill. Now, Yap hasn't had the greatest season for SJSU from an offensive perspective. I think Spartan fans coming in were expecting a whole lot more from Yap. But, the fact that he struggled to shoot the ball and he's starting to finally, get his rhythm. He's gotten a bunch of open looks, but they just simply haven't fallen this season. And, we've talked to him. That's frustrating for him, but his impact, and you can't look at the stat sheet for this, his impact on the court from a defensive perspective has totally, changed, in this game in particular, it changed the game. And, Yap has been, a good defender for a majority of his career. He was a good defender at Fresno. And this year, the steals or, the advanced analytics might not pop up like, okay, Yap is being an impact player, but just based on the eye test, this is a guy that's going to bring it on both ends. And even though the shots aren't falling, he is still grinding on the defensive side of the ball. And, Obi Agbim, 7 points, 3 for 12 shooting, 1 for 6 from beyond the arc, like we said. That was one heck of a defensive performance from Donovan Yap. SJSU's best defensive game of the year, hands down. The fact that they did that in their own building and in a game that they were favored in, they should have won. Wyoming was coming off their biggest win of the year, I thought, versus UNLV. UNLV's been all over the place this year. We know that, but that's a game. They go on the road. They're in Vegas. They won the game their way. SJSU had to make some adjustments in the second half, and they did. Speeding things up. Latrell Davis was a lot of that. And, just the full 40-minute effort defensively, not only from Donovan Yap, but just the team overall. That was a massive green flag for me in this game for San Jose State. And they got a game on Tuesday, January 28th, but who knows when you're listening to this, whether it's Monday night when we're recording this, that being tomorrow this game is, or maybe you're listening to this the day the SJSU San Diego State game, but regardless, this is a tough game for San Jose State. I think we know that. This game is on the road at Viejas Arena, one of the more hostile environments in the league. They've had horrendous history here. I don't think they've even won in this building before. So, good time to have your best defensive game of the year, right? I mean, the fact that you hold Wyoming to 58 points and, SJSU won that game by 9 on Saturday. It felt like a whole lot more if you watched it. It seemed like they were up. It felt like they were up north of 20, it seemed like, the way Wyoming was shooting the ball. And Obi Agbin, we said his stat line, there was not much else anywhere from, the rest of the starting five amongst others. So San Jose State's got this game for San Diego State on Tuesday. The big game, the night game. All the folks from San Diego will be off work. They'll be packing the crowd. The students are back in session, so you already know the student section is going to be rocking at Viejas Arena. But you put yourself your best defensive performance, and now you hope the defense travels on the road. We've seen San Jose State be feisty on the road this year compared to the past few years. This has probably been, outside of the 2 years ago when they had the historic season and Coach Miles won Coach of the Year. This has hands down been the next best group that has that's performed on the road. Now they're gonna have to hit some shots, obviously, especially because of the shot blocking presence of Magoon Guath for San Diego State. He's averaging over 3 blocks a game. Good luck trying to get inside shots. We're just gonna be completely honest. I mean, this guy, he's coming off a double double at Reno. It was one of his better scoring games of the year, so he's really starting to pick things up. But defensively, this guy's a menace. So I'm very excited, as always, to see the big man matchup with Big Rob Viola and Magoon Guath. You got a senior going up against a freshman, so that should be pretty exciting. And if San Jose State is shooting threes and they're making threes in this game, they're going to be in it. San Diego State, we talked about them last week. Like the fact that they got 3 home losses is a little bit outside of San Diego State's, just pedigree and character. But Brian Dutcher, he's going to have those guys ready. I think it does help to an extent that they smashed Nevada on the road. They're going to be all fat and happy about themselves, but they're back at home and they're going to have the energy with that crowd. So it's not like this is a letdown spot or anything like that for San Diego State. San Jose State's got to be ready. They already know what's in front of them. Tim Miles obviously knows as an experienced head coach what Brian Dutcher brings to the table. And, Donovan Yap, Josh Aduje, who have played in the Mountain West, Rob Viola, seen those Aztec teams before. So they know the scouting report to an extent, like as far as, they're going to grind on the defensive end and, they're going to press for a large majority of the game. So we'll see how that materializes for SJSU. They got to deal with some Wyoming's press the other night late in the game, and they stifled it and they were working on it. But San Diego State's is a different animal, and they're gonna just have one dude, just full court press, and it'll probably be Miles Bird or Nick Boyd or one of those guys who are bringing it up. One of the guards for SJSU. They're gonna have to break the press. So we'll see how that goes for the Spartans. It's a good road challenge for them because they haven't played at Utah State yet. They haven't played at Boise yet. This is probably their toughest environment of the year. I mean, I would probably say. I mean, at Nevada, that place was not lit 2 weeks ago. And, USC, when they went over there to at the Galen Center, it was, I would say, a wine and cheese crowd. So this is a good test for San Jose State. We'll see where they're at right now. I mean, they're seventh in the Mountain West. And they got Air Force coming into town on Saturday. That should be very much a winnable game in San Jose. So we'll see where this team is at. I'm very intrigued to see what they look like on the road in the toughest road environment they've played in. And this is an older team, so I don't expect them to be rattled. But if they're hitting shots, they're going to be in here. San Diego State's probably going to win. I mean, this would be probably the upset of the season. And look, San Jose State's already got an upset win versus New Mexico, but the circumstances are completely different when you're at home versus New Mexico in that sandwich spot we talked about 3 weeks ago. Versus this now where you're on the road and a San Diego State team that nearly lost at Air Force, and they do not want to flirt with the bad loss here at home. So we'll see how it goes. I'm interested to see how the Spartans look on both sides of the ball, and for San Diego State's perspective as well. Like who's going to be the guy that's doing damage? Is it going to be Guath? Will it be Bird? Will it be Taj DeGorville, their freshman? Wayne McKinney, who had the game winner at Air Force. So we're at this point right now with San Diego State where you don't really know who it's going to be on any given night, which is a little bit of outside of their, character a little bit. Usually they got that designated scorer, but, Bird hasn't, necessarily been the guy that he's been he's been the number one option in a large majority of their games, but when he's not shooting it well, they got to go elsewhere and, they got to search for other answers. So we'll see how that game develops at Viejas Arena, and it'll be a good crowd as always. down there in Southern California. As far as the Wyoming, picture is concerned, so Obi Agbim from this past Saturday. Obi Agbim was contained. Everybody else was pretty much contained. I mean, Jordan Nesbitt, their two guard, was like 2 for 10. He came off the bench. Sundance Wicks has done some crazy things this year, as far as just inconsistent minutes across the board. Like outside of Obi Agbim, you really don't know who's playing on this team. I mean, Cole Henry was a starter for them. He was, I would say he's one of their best defenders on this team, especially on the front court. And the fact that he only played like what 7 minutes in this game was kind of a little shocking to me. Toko Taitomo, he only played 6 minutes. He had like a game winner for them at the MTE in the non-conference. Like they have kind of mixed up the minutes here a lot. I don't know what Sundance Wicks is doing. I know he's going. They hired a general manager, and he's got that whole analytical background. So maybe that's got to do something with it, where they're just, I wouldn't say living and dying by the analytics, but they're definitely analytic heavy and rolling with that based on every matchup. It's very interesting out there in Laramie, Wyoming, and what they're doing. It obviously didn't work this game because we talked about the star players having 7 points. If it weren't for Scotty Abube, who had 22 points, was like a DNP like 2 games ago, played like 6 minutes at UNLV, and he had 22 points, a career high, in 17 minutes, 6 assists, and he was in foul trouble as well, 11 for 14. And a lot of that might just have to be doing like, hey, well, yeah, they're gonna feed the hot hand. He was the only hot hand, but just Coach Wicks just trying to switch things up and saying a couple prayers in the process. I don't know. It's it's very weird what they're doing. It's very uncharacteristic. It's clear that the team can't score and they have to win in that boring pace and ugly the game up. With all that being said, when San Jose State goes to Laramie in February, that's going to be a tricky game. Like, there's no doubt about that. Like, the altitude clearly gets to the players. We talked to all players around the league about it. It's real. And Wyoming just plays better on their home court, like every other Mountain West team. So expect it to be a coin flip game out there in Laramie when San Jose State travels to Wyoming in February. And, overall, all road games will be tricky in this league. And I think we've specified that a bunch. San Diego State and Nevada. This was the nightcap on Saturday. We already said that San Diego State won the game. They controlled the game. They were up, 20 points in this game. It was a snoozer. The game was well over, like I would say, 5 minutes into the second half. If it felt like it, if you watched the game, you know what I'm talking about. San Diego State won 69-50. They led by 7 at halftime. And this was kind of like the ultimate, I would say, spot and situation for Nevada to really score a big win. They really haven't had a big win this year. And, granted, they haven't played too many, heavyweights in the conference. They're coming off the smash, the blowing out smash mouth game. I don't even want to call it smash mouth. They just got smashed by Utah State and Logan. They lost by over 20 points there, non-competitive in the second half. And, the fact that you lose this game versus San Diego State, where they almost lost at Air Force, kind of playing with their food a little bit in that game, and Air Force shot 44 free throws. And Nevada, you started out 0-3 in league play. You lose to New Mexico at the Horn. You kind of start to slowly but surely get things back on the right track, take care of San Jose, beat Air Force barely, and beat Fresno in overtime. The fact that you don't win this game, you don't have any big wins on your resume, really. And the fact that you dropped this game in front of your home crowd and San Diego State completely not only controls the game, but wipes out your entire crowd in the second half because you lost. That is embarrassing. And, I've been very, I would say I've been critical of, Steve Alford and his teams over the years where they're going to be good. They're very talented. He's a good recruiter. He's going to get talent and he'll figure it out. But his teams will always crumble down the stretch. Well, now we've gotten to the point now where this team is right in there with Wyoming and San Jose State in the standings now at 3-6 in league play. And there's just not many opportunities. And when you watch this team, with Nick Davidson, Kobe Sanders, and all of the supporting cast members that they have, Trey Coleman, first team All Mountain West defensive player of the year as well. I mean, this is just a Wolfpack team that can't mesh. And the fact that they haven't gotten a big win, they just look lost out there. And that is what's really, kind of throwing me off guard because this was a team that was picked what second and third in the preseason polls. A lot of respect for what they did in the portal. And I'm watching their transition defense out there. I'm seeing Magoon Gwath getting alley-oops. Miles Bird's like throwing it like it's Lob City. And like they just don't look together out there. And this that is shocking to me for a team that is the oldest team in the Mountain West. They are the sixth oldest team in America. And the fact that they can't close, I don't know who their number one guy is. And none of their starters had a made three-pointer in this game. Like it's just I don't know what's going on in Reno. Like they just haven't been able to mesh. And that is shocking for a team that's got over 7 to 8 seniors. And they got KJ Himes, who's been there forever, 7 years. And they got players. Like it's just amazing to me. And this is a group that hit the portal hard. So if they haven't meshed now, I don't know if they will. I mean, we've gotten to the point now, now they got to go play, at Boise State on Wednesday. Like, go ahead, chalk that up as a loss because from what we've seen thus far, I don't see it happening. And now this is a team that's going to be playing in round one in the first day of the Mountain West tournament. 4 games in 4 days for Steve Alford's group. We already know he's got a bad history in the Mountain West tournament. This Nevada team, I think you should sell the stock on them if you haven't already, because I certainly have. Maybe we'll talk to Jonathan Conness very soon. Maybe even get him on the pod because I know he was very high on Nevada this year. I think he had him to win the regular season. So I'm shocked that they just haven't been able to put it together because we've seen that Steve Alford's teams put it together. They very much missed Jared Lucas and Keenan Blackshear because that backcourt had a whole lot of chemistry and experience. And sometimes it's just one of those things. It's the transfer portal will work in your favor, and other times it won't. And this is a team that had some key returners come back with Davidson and Coleman and Himes, and they kind of filled in the rest in the portal. And the fact that they haven't been able to mesh together, like we said, it's shocking. But sometimes, that's the risk of working the portal. And ultimately, it comes down to the coaching staff for them to, and the players as well, but the coaching staff, most importantly, to put them into situations to flourish. And we haven't seen that this year, especially for a group that doesn't know who their closer is and hasn't been able to close out games, most importantly. So that is the Nevada Wolfpack. They got some problems, and I don't know if they're going to be resolved. As for New Mexico and UNLV, and that was a high-level basketball game. That was, the noon Fox game. So obviously, they're putting that game on Fox at the noon window Pacific time. That tells you all you need to know. It was a high-level basketball game. We've talked about UNLV's, just them being all over the place this year. I mean, you lose at Wyoming. We knew they were going to be up for this game, guys. That's just the way Kevin Kruger and UNLV have been. And the fact that they don't win the game is definitely frustrating. I mean, now, UNLV is, just depending on, winning the Mountain West tournament. Like they don't have they have wins on their resume. Don't get me wrong, Utah State and, the conference wins will always be there for them because they get up and they have the at San Diego State win. Like they got some big wins, but, for how poor the league has done overall this year, just the overall body of work compared to last year, you're not going to get the at-large bid. And obviously, they didn't suffer the bad loss in non-conference play like they did last year, but man, like you just can't lose to teams that you're supposed to beat. And obviously New Mexico's is better than UNLV, but it was a tricky game for New Mexico. And the fact that they got it done with Donovan Dent having 32 points. I mean, what he had almost like 20, he had like 25 at the break, it seemed like. I mean, just incredible. Like just the point guard matchup as a whole in this game was terrific between Dent and Deaton Thomas Jr. Thomas, we talked about his struggles and him kind of having that sophomore slump and offensively and he hasn't been he's been good, but the shooting percentage hasn't been great. But his ability to get to the free throw line, anyone that watches the Mountain West know this. Like he is just so hard to guard going downhill. Like he is going to get fouled. I mean, he shot 10 free throws in this game. He went 8 for 10. And if you saw the ending to this game, you know that he missed the first and he made the first and missed the second to tie the game, with 1 second left. And that stinks, not only for him, but for this team. Uh, you know, the Rebels are going to be one of those teams, probably, like we've said, like if they're peaking at the right time and, if they could get out of round one in the Vegas tournament, maybe they can make a run, but I can't trust this team in 4 games in 4 days, to win the tournament and steal a bid. Like, from what we've seen, not only this year, but from the past several years with Kevin Kruger now at head coach, like I just don't know if they're going to have him ready. And there's just so many elite coaches in the Mountain West on short turnaround that I would take respectfully over Kevin Kruger. And, even when they got red hot last year, they lost the first game in overtime to San Diego State. And, shoulda, woulda, coulda, if you were UNLV that year. And, this year could be the same, but I think it's the same old song and dance with this team. And it's unfortunate because my guess would be that Deaton Thomas is not back next year because I would imagine they move on from Kruger. I know lots of UNLV fans that are not happy, obviously, just with the inconsistencies overall, and how you know they just simply get out coached in these games by teams that they shouldn't. And just overall, I thought just the roster construction was just it's just not great this year. They really missed like a Luis Rodriguez and the Boone brothers this year. I mean, we said like if they brought that team back this year, and Brooklyn Hicks a year older, and maybe you get a little bit more size in the front court, and Jalen Hill a full year, okay, like it could be different. But for the experience that they lost last year, and those guys that we mentioned, the fact that they're not on this year's roster, it's a loss, and they just didn't really do enough in the portal to really figure it out. I know Rishwain had himself a good game. He hit 5 threes on Saturday in the New Mexico loss, but that's just not going to get it done. Like, it's just, they just don't have enough. Even when Rishwain makes 5 threes. They don't, outside of Deaton Thomas, they're literally relying on Thomas and somebody else to come up and spark up for a surprise 12 points because they just simply don't have the reinforcements like they've had the last 2 years, and that was even before Thomas was there. Like they 2 years ago their team was better without when Thomas was a high school senior. So it's frustrating if you're a Rebel fan. I would expect a whole lot of changes during the off season, and a game like that, it's frustrating because you probably thought you played good enough to win, but New Mexico is just a really good team. They are a really good team, and Donovan Dent is incredible. I think he needs to be in the first team All American conversation. We'll see. I mean, he still has another year of eligibility. I mean, he's going to be very tough to keep in Albuquerque, and I think New Mexico Lobo fans know that because of all the NIL interest he's going to get next year. Like we've talked about him all year long and what he's bringing to the table. Like he right now is running away with Player of the Year, and outside of Neat Clifford and maybe Mason Falslev slash Ian Martinez, those guys might cancel each other out. But outside of Clifford, man, there is not a whole lot else that are doing what Donovan Dent is doing to impact his team right now. And just one heck of a player, and their supporting cast. This is something I do want to talk about. New Mexico supporting cast, we've been very, I guess, skeptical in them in a way. Like in a game like this, okay, like you get 34 from Dent, you get a Nelly Jr. Joseph masterclass, 22 points, 18 rebounds. He was awesome. And I like Philip Brovicinen. He's just been a rebound monster for this team. And, Mustafa Amzil, like 2 points and, in 21 minutes. Uh, I guess he's got an injury now, and, that it could be a bad injury, from what's been floating around out there on online and, just within the circles at New Mexico. So that, if you lose Amzil long term, that is a problem. And you know what? It's just they need CJ Nolan. They need CJ Nolan off the bench to really produce because you can't throw Milicevic out there, where he's just gonna chuck up a three and then, not give you much else, and then he's gonna get bullied by the upperclassmen in the painted area. Appelhans is a sharpshooter off the bench and he's only a freshman. Um, you know, Ali Atiki, very limited minutes, off the bench. They try to roll out Cade Dotson, who's trying to be an energy guy out there, but in these close games in the Mountain West, I don't know if he's ready as a freshman. Like this is right now for New Mexico, you know, they're a good group, and we're gonna find out how good they really are on this Saturday at Utah State. I think Utah State will probably win the game in Logan. They're at home, but still, I'm very interested for the depth that Utah State has, and all the guys that they have that can hurt you. Aubin Getaretze, Dexter Acano, Dayton Albury, like we can go on. Anybody can drop 15. You're gonna need again a Donovan Dent and a Nelly Jr. Joseph masterclass, unless we get a true Washington for 15, or maybe a healthy Amzil for 15. You're gonna need somebody else because we already know Utah State is gonna have five players with 10 plus. And if you're going to rely on Dent to get you 40 and, have somebody else come along for the ride, it's just simply not going to be enough unless you ugly the game up enough. And we know New Mexico's defense has been very good this year. But in Logan, it could, I think New Utah State's going to be able to score in their own building. So that's what I'm looking out for in that matchup in particular. They didn't really get all too much of, complimentary scoring in this one outside of Dent and Joseph. And, for the Mountain West tournament for New Mexico, you're gonna need some guys to, bring it on. And I think that's the one thing that I will be paying attention to the most, as we flip the calendar to February and into March. And that is, can CJ Nolan. He only went 1 for 4 in Vegas. Can he hit some more threes? Can he be a legitimate bench scorer? Off the bench, because all the teams that are gonna, there's not gonna be a lot of teams out there, that get into the NCAA tournament in the Mountain West this year. But Utah State definitely has the guns, and right now they have the same record as New Mexico, and New Mexico needs to find that spark plug off the bench. If they really want to make some noise in March, because this team has some real upside like that team last year did, but they can't rely on Donovan Dent every single night and Nelly Jr. Joseph to get it done. Like I said like over a month ago, it just won't be sustainable. So we'll see what that looks like. It's going to change on game to game. More importantly, I want to see it on the road because role players play better at home. But when this team, they're right on the bubble for the NCAA tournament right now, first four in, last four in. According to all the bracketologists out there, you're gonna be playing these games on neutrals. So on the road, especially, is where I want to see the bench guys and the third and fourth options really pick it up and see if they could shoot in those environments, because that's when it's going to matter in March time frame. So we'll see how that goes for New Mexico, and for UNLV, of course, a tough loss. And from this past Saturday, I mean, Colorado State escaped Fresno at the Save Mart Center with a 5-point win. Nick Clifford again, terrific, with his 24 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. And Utah State just doing their thing. just smash Air Force by 29. And, Utah State just continuing to impress. That's all we can really say. As far as the what we got in the Mountain West, we talked about SJSU and San Diego State, Fresno and Wyoming, as well, Air Force and Colorado State. Nothing really too spicy on Tuesday. As for Wednesday, Nevada at Boise State. I mean, Boise State is playing some, they're pretty pissed off right now after all the close games they've lost. They're back at home, and UNLV at Utah State. I mean, we'll see what version of UNLV we get. We already know what we're going to get out of Utah State. That's also a revenge game for the Aggies. They lost to the Rebels. Their only conference loss um, is to the Rebels in Vegas. So we'll see how that materializes. But like we said, the main event on Saturday in the Mountain West is New Mexico versus Utah State in Logan for what was it's going to be probably the biggest game of the regular season thus far. There's that is for sure, and it's gonna like we said, it's gonna determine a whole lot of regular season stuff and standings and tiebreakers, and just one more big win on the resume, big picture for these teams. For all the bracketologists to overanalyze as we get closer to March. So, before we close things out here on the Sports Sentiment podcast, we got where we said that we were going to start doing a mid-major team of the week, mid-major player of the week. But this is a bit we're gonna just focus on one player and team this week, and completely off the radar, I guess, from a team out in Conference USA. For not only a player but a team that I think needs to start getting a little bit more respect. Conference USA, a deep league this year, but it's a tough league to win on the road. We college basketball, it's always hard to win on the road, but home teams dominate. It's almost like the Mountain West. Home teams are going to dominate once when they get into conference play. But let me just say this: Adrian Woolley, freshman point guard for Kennesaw State, the Owls. This is probably the best freshman in the sport no one is talking about. He's averaging 18 points per game. He leads his team in assists and steals per game. He's got 7 20-point games this season, including a 23-point game and a come from behind win last week at New Mexico State. Kennesaw State in their first year at Conference USA, relocating from the Atlantic Sun Conference. They're fourth in the league, and they are one game back of the conference lead with UTEP. And the Owls are 9-0 at home. They have themselves a supporting cast with a lot of productive freshmen. They got their two guards, Simeon Cottle, has been incredible as well, averaging 17 points per game as well. And head coach Anton Petway, one heck of a recruiter. He came from Alabama, and just overall that coaching tree. And right now, he's got himself a talented group of freshmen and a team that is meshing incredibly well right now. So Kennesaw State, the Owls, this is a team in March in their first year in Conference USA. Once when we get to that conference tournament, don't be shocked if this is a team that's causing a whole lot of havoc in March, because they got a star freshman that no one's talking about. They got some more freshmen that are complementing Adrian Woolley very well. And they got Simeon Cottle. That's a three-level scorer, is going to guard and, do a whole lot of good things. So Kennesaw State, not saying that they're going to be like a bid stealer or anything, in March, but in the Conference USA League that's got Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee State, that's very good at home, UTEP that's playing, that's turned it up a notch. They got Liberty, who won the regular season last year. Sam Houston State won the regular season last year. They're dead last, but I expect them to, pick up some wins. Like, it's a deep league, and Kennesaw State, this is a new place out in Kennesaw, Georgia, where players got to travel now. It's not on the normal rotation. This is the first year they're going out there, and they're figuring out that it's a sneaky good home environment. Like we said, they're 9-0 at home. So keep an eye on those Kennesaw State Owls, because they are, I would say, the wild card, and I guess, maybe say, the sneaky good team that no one's talking about in that conference. So Adrian Woolley and the Kennesaw State Owls, led by Anton Petway. So far, so good out here. They actually came to San Jose and they actually played their worst game of the year. They played at Santa Clara and at San Jose. So I have an understanding of what they've been doing all year long, and I've been monitoring their games closely throughout the year. They came out to the West Coast and they couldn't play basketball. Like at Santa Clara, at San Jose, they got smashed. Like that's San Jose State's biggest win of the year. It was 28-point win. And they got smashed at Santa Clara like 3 days before that, too, by double digits. When they've came out to the West Coast, they haven't played good. But it's like West Coast teams going out to the East Coast. They're not going to play good either for their non-conference. But now that they're in league play, that's a team that is really starting to shine and really starting to raise a lot of eyebrows out there in that league that seems like no one really knows too much about and hasn't really scouted all those coaches because they're brand new. So fun team to watch, fun overall league to monitor out there in Conference USA. Just because, sure, home teams win, but when that team does win on the road, like Kennesaw State did last week at New Mexico State, it's kind of eye-opening because you know that you're not going to get a lot of games on the road, similar to the Mountain West. So that's all I got for everybody today. Again, college basketball as we flip the calendar to February next week. We got some big games on the Mountain West schedule, of course, and just overall big picture. Just some big games overall. Honestly, quite surprised Utah State did not crack the top 25 this week in the AP poll. Based on the votes and all that, they're saying that they're right around 28th, but for a team that's only lost to UNLV and UC San Diego, and UC San Diego smashing every team in the Big West. That's a little bit surprising. So maybe if Utah State beats New Mexico, maybe that will get everybody on the Associated Press maybe put them in their top 25 polls. But just a little thought there after the AP polls come out on a Monday morning. But hey, lots of good stuff to talk about. Appreciate all the love from, not only San Jose State fans, but, just across the Mountain West. I see all the Lobo fans, tapping into the comments and, just the inbox overall. So appreciate everybody for checking out the podcast. And hey, we're just out here, having fun talking about the games, analyzing it, and as a broadcaster myself that gets to see all these teams in person and call those games on the radio, it's just a whole lot of fun. So that will do it for this episode of the Sports Sentiment. Once again, I am your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.